Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration? I didn't mean to do that. Please, continue.
There's a lot of things about me you don't know anything about, Daddy. Things you wouldn't understand. Things you couldn't understand. You don't want to get mixed up with a guy like me. I'm a loner, Daddy. A rebel.
And the Holy Spirit spoke to me. The gift of faith came on me. He said, kick her in the face with your biker boot.
What you talking about, Willis?
You're a cheat and a swindler. That's what you are.
Now, let me talk to the young people here. You are prey, P-R-E-Y, for these churches. Brand new believers, pray for these churches. P-R-E-Y. It's sexy. It's cool. Calvinism, man. Because I got God in a box.
I call that bold talk for a one-eyed fat man.
The gospel's not something we live. It is an announcement of what God has done in Christ through the cross by grace to give eternal hope to those who have faith in Him.
Please, continue.
This is a Rebels Cause Radio with Jonathan Wedgeworth and your host, the tattooed freak of a man, Dan Fry.
That is right. I am that tattooed freak of the man. They call me Papa Tat on the chat, Father Tattoo from the pew, and of course, just Dan. I got to get a new intro. I've been using that one a while.
Yep.
But it is true. I just like to be called Dan. I don't mind the Papa Tat for blogging and chatting. On the car forums, I'm sideways.
How many times have you flipped your car?
Never. But I've gone sideways a couple times accidentally.
Okay.
On the interstate. I wouldn't recommend that.
In that new Mustang?
Not in the new Mustang. Oh. Not in the new Mustang yet.
New minivan, maybe.
No.
You get a minivan going sideways. That's
probably impressive. A lot easier than a Mustang.
Bud.
That is impressive.
That'd be a good story.
Impressive. Sorry. All right. Tonight, everybody's talking about it. Normally, when everybody's talking about something, you will notice we talk about anything but. But this one's actually it's got a little bit of a personal connection. That's not really true. I had an incident come up over this topic, and it really changed my perspective. Of course, that is the Martin Zimmerman, or Mark, what's his name? Mark Zimmerman versus Trayvon Martin. Of course, Zimmerman killed Martin in a altercation that happened, I believe, last year.
George
Zimmerman. There you go, George Zimmerman. It shows you how much I've been following this.
Mark is upset right now.
I'm sure.
Sorry, Mark.
So, when this first happened, I posted up, like everybody else did, a picture of a young African-American man flipping off the camera with gold teeth, and then the media's picture of what they were trying to paint this kid to be, which is a sweet 15-year-old child. Turns out, first of all, that picture, not Trayvon Martin. So I bought right into it, along with a lot of other people. But probably the most notable thing happened is I have a buddy, his name's Dave, and he got on my Facebook, and he basically reamed me out pretty good. Just really took me to the cleaners. He is married to a black woman and has children of mixed race that do indeed look black. And one of the things he said to me, probably the most powerful out of everything that he said, you will never understand what it's like to have black children that are going to grow up and look like this and have this story in the news. You won't get it. And I started thinking about that for a long time. And I quit commenting on the trial altogether. You'll notice I've said pretty much boo about this whole thing as it's been going on. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized, man, I don't know what that's like. I never will know what that's like. Unless something, God forbid, happens to my wife, there's literally no chance of that. So, I was speaking out of turn. And the more I thought about it, and the more this case got turned into a race issue, the more I thought about how do we respond to this? How do we deal with this as white guys? Which is why instead of calling a bunch of my black friends to come on and have this conversation, I called probably the whitest guy I can find. He's from Pennsylvania, Lancaster, Pennsylvania, home of the Amish. Amish Mafia is filmed there, for those of you that care. I brought on a guy named Quay Hanna. Quay Hanna is, though, a internationally known speaker on race, travels the world speaking about this subject. He wrote a book called Bus America, Revelation of a Redneck. Excellent book. It is not a hard read. It is designed for probably middle school students and up to be able to read and take in. It's an interesting story. It's a fascinating journey he takes, both actually and mentally. But he had some really good insights on it. And of course, the end of the book, the best part is it ended with the gospel message, which was, I thought, very profound. He works with inner city youth and black kids across the country, speaking with them, working with them, working in the local high schools. He is a member over at Sovereign Grace Church, so he is a Christian, a good, solid denomination over there. And Quay, we're really excited to have you on the show today. Tell me everything you do when it comes to your job. What is? I mean, you go around and talk to kids. What's your job entail? Give me a little detail about that.
Thank you, Dan, for having me back. It's great to be here on Rebels Cause again. And I've been at this now for 16 years. I began basically by taking my bus trip around America in 1993, which was I started riding the Greyhound bus around the country. And I spent 9 weeks traveling through 37 states, 12,000 miles by Greyhound. And I ended up writing a book about the trip called Bus America, Revelation of a Redneck. And it's about, this small town country boy from Strasburg, Pennsylvania, which is in Lancaster, seeing America for the first time on the Greyhound bus. And the underlying theme of the book is how I grew up very racist and prejudiced, and how traveling around the country changed my perspective. When the book came out in 97, I was invited to speak at some local high schools, and one local high school had a major racial incident that fall. That was the fall of 1997. They invited me to speak. They asked me to start working with both the perpetrators and the victims in the incident. We had a huge amount of success, and other schools started calling me, and I started doing presentations at elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, colleges, conferences around the country and now around the world. And I get a chance to not only speak and do assemblies and presentations in colleges and so on, but I also get to work in 5 school districts on a consistent basis, working again with perpetrators and victims, but more in a proactive sense, because now these are schools in which I'm embedded, and I'm working with a wide range of youth, ultimately to help them think critically and to find ways to respect each other, and maybe even every now and then become friends with one another.
Now, throughout your career doing this, how many students do you think you've had an impact on that you know of?
That's a loaded question. Well, one of the things I've always said about my job is that it's very difficult to measure quantitatively. So, you basically are going by what young people tell you. And a lot of times one of the things I say is it's very difficult to say how. Let's say I'm working with a student who has a lot of racial tendencies and gets suspended quite a bit, and they still get suspended a couple times before they graduate, and people say, well, it didn't work. But we don't know how many times they would have been suspended if we weren't working together. So, but, I've had a chance to speak in front of probably now 700,000 people, and I've gotten to work with students in small groups, and I've probably worked in small groups with more than 1,500 students, I would say. And the number of students who come back and talk about significant changes, again, it's hard to measure. But I do have quite a few students who come back to me, including students who are white supremacists who leave the movement. I've had at least 2 students like that. and quite a few others who will just talk about, a lot of times it takes years. Now a lot of my students now, in fact, my first year students are older than you are, Dan. So a lot of them now are becoming parents.
Not if they're only 16 years longer than I am. I think I'm surprisingly old for what I look like.
Aren't you 31?
I'm 33.
Okay, well, my first year students are 33, some of them.
Okay.
But now they're becoming parents, and they're in the workforce, and they're raising their children, and they're starting to ask some of the questions. They were, working in those small groups, and they're starting to see, now I understand why we don't want to promote hatred, or why I want my kids to think a little differently about their interactions and respect and so on. So I'm not even going to venture a guess at the number, but there's a lot of students who do get back to me.
Right.
Again, black and white.
Now, earlier when I called you just to kind of go over a little bit of how the show was going to go, you mentioned an experiment you did kind of via Facebook. I'm assuming fairly recently, where you took 30 people and asked them about this case, the Zimmerman Martin case. What were the responses? Well, originally I was just going to post on Facebook. I have 2,500 friends on Facebook. Aren't you popular? Well, yeah, and I say friends with quotes, but and it's a wide range. I mean, I have extremely liberal friends. I have extremely conservative friends. I have, I would say, probably even some white supremacists that are friends, and I have, black and Hispanic and Asian and Jewish and atheists, and a little bit of everything. I was going to originally put an all call out saying, "Hey, private message me with what you think about this. I'm going on this radio show. I'm just trying to get a cross section survey." But I just thought that was I don't like a lot of junk on my Facebook. I don't like people, posting derogatory things on there. So I thought maybe it'd be better just to pick a cross section of people who I know are careful thinkers, who think about issues, who are connected with what's going on in America, and see what they think. And out of 30, I think I heard back from 10. So that's 33%, which is decent. There wasn't anything shocking about what I heard. My more liberal leaning friends saw it one way, and my more conservative friends saw it another way. But one of the interesting things that happened was I wanted them to private message me, because I knew I was getting a wide range, and I knew that there would be some conflict, because they weren't going to line up a lot of these views. And one of my former students from my first year, so he would probably be around 33, he posted it for everyone of the 30 to see. And he was pretty he wasn't he didn't use racial slurs or anything, but definitely a firm stance in the way he saw things. And one of my former students, who's an African-American young woman who's in college now, she responded very respectfully, but challenged a couple of his things that he said, and then he responded with some clarification about what he said, and said, I probably didn't word that correctly, and it was actually great. And that's the point, is that's what we have to have right there. And I'm sure it was helpful for her to see things that maybe she wouldn't normally see, and helpful for him to possibly see some things that he doesn't normally see, and that's what we want. Okay.
It is very easy to see things from our foxholes.
Well, and that's kind of what I've observed about this is people's perspectives are so wildly different on this, and it is hard. It's literally hard to see where some of these people are coming from, and of course there's the extreme elements that I think we can kind of just write off on both sides, or all three sides, or all four sides, how many ever sides there are to this thing. You can kind of write the extreme off, but there's a lot of people in the center. So when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the sides and the obvious front runners, and we're going to tie it into the gospel. This is a Rebels Cause Radio. We're that show. I want you to read your Bible to actually know what it says. I want you to go to church, a good church, a Bible-believing church, one that teaches the entire counsel of the Word of God, love Jesus, and forsake the world. This is Rebels Cause Radio. We'll see you after the break.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
Yes, now your favorite programs on Webcast One Live can all be watched and listened to on any Android or Apple device. Your phone, tablet, or iPad. Yes, your favorite shows on Webcast One Live are available live or on podcast wherever you go. Let me introduce to you some of our great shows.
I'm Michael Libby. I'm the host of Insight on Business, the News Hour. We're seen live at 8:45 each Monday morning at Webcast One Live or whenever you want on my blog or on the internet. So what qualifies me to talk about advertising, marketing, and consumer trends? Well, it's my business. Insight Advertising, Marketing, and Communications has helped dozens of companies, small, medium, and large, learn how to use advertising correctly. And we pass that information on to you each and every week.
Hi, I'm Doc. You listen to me every Tuesday from 6 to 7 p.m. on Doc and Lefty radio podcast program, where we discuss all the relevant topics of the day, including state, local, and national politics. My partner in crime, Lefty, often likes to have a little bit of conservative justice served upon him, so please turn in for the fireworks every week from 6 to 7 p.m. on Tuesdays at webcastonelive.com. Thank you.
So when you want to watch your favorite Webcast One program, remember, there's an app for that. You know, there's an app for that.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Get away from my Sumino credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Help! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit, you're our hero!
When you find yourself in danger, when you're threatened by a stranger, when it looks like you will take a licking. Oh, the Super Chicken.
We know that there are a lot of great radio shows that you could be a fan of, but there is only one that's certified organic, free range, and cage free. Just like that hippie chicken you ate for dinner. This is a Rebels Cause Radio.
This is Rebels Cause Radio. I am your host. They call me Dan Fry.
Some of the nice ones.
Well, yeah, sometimes they have other names for me. We cannot repeat some of those on the radio. Sometimes they use my picture and then rant about how porn is okay. That happened.
Did that happen?
Yeah. It was really weird because we did that porn episode.
Oh, I remember. I remember.
And
Yeah, I remember
then
you talking about
an atheist guy ranted about how a supposed creator wouldn't care what he did with his
Yeah.
So anyway, that happens. Tonight, we're kind of picking up the story everybody's talking about, but we're trying to apply a new angle to it, and we're trying to wrap it in with the gospel message. You can actually chat. We do have a chat room. If you're listening to us Thursday night, if you're listening to us live or on KTIA, we're not live, unfortunately. This is a call-in show, so we want to make sure you can call in 1-855-244-0077.
That's Thursday, not Saturday.
Yeah, for Thursday. If you call in on Saturday, nobody will answer the phone. And we want to hear from you. We want to hear your opinions. As we're talking before the break with our guest, Hannah, think fruit. Hannah rhymes with banana.
Or a little less, how about Hanna-Barbera? That's a little less demeaning.
I have no idea who that is.
Really?
No.
Like Jetsons, Flintstones, Yogi Bear, the cartoon company, the company that makes all those cartoons, old cartoons.
Didn't they do the Flintstones too?
I think so.
Yeah, Flintstones.
I mean, I know all
Meet
those
the
cartoons,
Flintstones.
but
You don't remember the little swirling star logo at the end and it said Hanna-Barbera?
I guess I didn't pay attention to the exit. I was probably,
I suppose this isn't really what we're here to talk about tonight.
it isn't, but it's maybe more fascinating. I mean, we've had people drop off the chat because they haven't figured out how this related to the gospel. I think this has a lot to do with the gospel. I mean, I think how we treat people is wrapped up in Christian issues. I think Christians have a unique and different, or should have a unique and different perspective on these things.
It's a necessary consequence of the gospel. I wouldn't want to confuse categories and say it is the gospel or is part of the gospel.
No. I think it has to do with the gospel.
It's a consequence of the gospel.
Yeah. It's I'd be very clear. It's not.
Well, because you have people who say like, we need to be the gospel. We need to do the gospel. And if we need to be the gospel, then the gospel is very bad news.
Yeah. We'll have a whole show about that someday because I'm starting to not like Vody Wacom's. It's not something you live because we do live out Christ to people. So,
but that's not the gospel. We live consequences of the gospel. Anyway, we'll
have a whole show about it. It'd be great. I think it's okay. I mean, I guess bottom line, I think if that's the language you want to use, I understand what you're saying. It's probably not what I would choose. But anyway, so we're back on this topic. Of course, George Zimmerman shot and killed Trayvon Martin. Nation's in an uproar over the verdict that came out Saturday. It seems like everybody on Facebook got their overnight law degree. Kelly, that was your statement. I'll give you the credit for that one.
Yeah, I kicked it on Saturday night after the.
Oh yeah, Jody was going to say that too. Yeah,
after the trial, and it was like all my Facebook friends from years past have now apparently got their law degree overnight.
Yep.
Well, and it seems like everybody's got a perspective on it. There's at least two kind of major ones that I've noticed. There's the perspective that's kind of coming from the white privilege, looking at this. George Zimmerman isn't white. We don't understand why why this is a race thing. We think he shouldn't have been. He should have been found not guilty. We're good with the decision. And then there's the other side who feels like justice wasn't served, and they're very upset about it. There was talks, and in fact, some few smaller riots.
My understanding is there were some small outbreaks in the LA area, but not anything to the order of like the Rodney King
or anything. Yeah. And so there's talks of riots. What are we missing? I mean, that's really the question. How are we missing each other so much that we just don't like? From my side, I'm not going to try to identify my side, but from my side, I look at the other side and I don't really get it. Quay, can you help us through this? What do we, as a bunch of white people, what are we missing that we're not connecting with the injustice and the travesty part of this story?
Well, I don't think there's any easy answer to that. I think one of the things that happened to me early in my career, though, that was something that I'm really thankful happened early in my career because it helped me at least as a starting point throughout the rest of it. So it was my second year as a speaker. I was speaking at a conference here in Lancaster, and a very well-known African-American woman was at this conference. She was going to be speaking as well. And we had this meeting before the week before the conference to discuss how it was going to happen and what it was going to look like. And she privately took me aside and asked me, you've been in the paper a lot. I've heard a lot about you, and you're working with these, rural white country boys with racist views. She said, tell me how you help them understand racism. So I said, well, I use this example that, a lot of my students are farmers, so they're out working in the field and they get, they're out working all day and they're very sweaty and they're hot. They go to a convenience store to get something to drink, and the person behind the counter treats them like a second-class citizen, treats them like they're not worth their time, because they're hot, sweaty, and dirty. And, I thought this was a good example, and she stopped me. She looked at me with anger and she said, don't you ever compare that to racism. Don't you ever think that that's what racism is like. She said, because that same kid can go home, take a shower, change his clothes, go back to the same store, that same convenience store, have the same clerk behind the counter, bring a drink up, and get treated very differently. She said, when you're black, you're black. And don't ever think you know what that's like. So the positive side to that was that I realized that I can only see the world through the eyes that I have. And the eyes that I have and the experiences that I have had, they're always going to be a part of the way that I see the world. And as much as I work with young African-American students and other black people and other people of other cultures, there's a general understanding that I can get, and maybe even some specific understanding, but I don't know that I can ever know what it's like. And yeah, that's where I think it gets very difficult for us to see it from each side.
So if we're not capable through our eyes and through our experiences, which I would agree, we're not. I'm not black, so I don't know what it's like. I can only guess. I can only watch my friends that are black and the reactions they get and stuff like that. But I'm not really feeling that emotionally. Is there a way to fix it even? I mean, if we're never going to see the other person's side, is this something that's always going to be on our radars?
You would have a better answer for that than I would, Quay.
Are you sure, John?
Yes, I'm sure.
He's hoping anyway.
Here, I can prove it. I'll give you my answer, then you'll have a better one. I think maybe this isn't a universal thing, but I think it's a general rule that we do all have skewed perspectives. I think that in general we could say that there's a degree of racial denial with whites. We don't see racism where it's there, but there's also racial paranoia on the other side where they see racism where it's not. And my general kind of unscientific premise is let's just pretend racism can be quantified, and we know it can't, but let's just say gallons. Okay. If I think there's 10 gallons of racism going around and they think there's 90, it's probably 40 or 50. It's probably somewhere right in the middle. I'm thinking. And that doesn't solve the problem necessarily, but I think if you know that those are the presuppositions, then you can kind of adjust your approach a little bit that way, and that kind of helps a bit.
Mm-hmm. No, that's fair, and I think that's reasonable. And I do think that really is what it's. Sometimes when I'm speaking, one of the things I'll say is kind of taken from that first conversation with that older African American woman, is that, look, you see the world through the eyes that you have. So start there. And understand your presuppositions, understand your potential prejudices, and just know that they're there. And because none of us are going to escape them. We're all bringing those experiences to the table. And one of the things I would say is that for me on my bus trip, one of the big things that happened for me was that for the first time in my life, I was a minority. So sometimes I'll suggest to people, go places where you're the minority. And again, it's not the same thing as racism, but it can help you understand that, okay, if I'm like, if a white person says to me, why do black people always think that people are talking about them or that they're getting singled out? Well, have you ever been the only white guy in the room? So that when something happens to you, especially something negative, for the first time it might run through your mind, was that because I'm white? Maybe it had nothing to do with me being white, but because I'm the only white guy in the room, and for some reason I was singled out in this situation, for the first time it comes to my mind because I am the minority in the room. So I think that was a big thing that happened for me during my bus trip, and I've had a great pleasure now of being the minority a lot of places, including living in Los Angeles and in North Hollywood, which is about 95% Mexican, and I am the only white guy walking down the street. When I walk into a grocery store, they're wondering, why are you here? And those are some of the experiences that I think are helpful. But Dan, I think the more important question, I want to bring this in because I know that I did see that on the chat that someone left. I'm with you that we always want to link these social issues to the gospel. And when we ask the question, I ask this all the time, Dan, because sometimes I worry because I do this for a living and sometimes I can't see it. And I think I do this for a living. I'm very passionate about this. And if I can't see it, how can I expect anybody else to, who I'm trying to help see it? Well, I said what we need is one unifier, one thing that we can go to that links us. Well, as believers, that's Christ. That's our link. So I think then going back to what John just said, if I see 10 gallons of racism and someone else sees 90 gallons, as a Christian, I want to defer to them. I want to love my brother and my sister, and I want to come alongside them. I want them to help me see. I want to worry less in this moment about what I think and my 10 gallons and listen to them and what they see as 90 gallons.
You're listening to Rebels Cause Radio. The guest that you're hearing is actually a guy named Quay Hanna. He is an internationally known speaker about race. Joining me in studio today, of course, as always, Jonathan Wedgeworth. And our recent semi-regular addition, Kelly Lindberg.
Second week out of 2 weeks.
Yeah, second week. So it's semi-regular so far. We're going to up you to semi-regular.
Semi-regular. I have arrived.
So and of course, it's produced by Ryan Northfield and powered by Webcast One. We're talking about race. We're talking about talking past each other in this conversation. Of course, we all know about the Trayvon Martin case. We all have our opinions about it. We've seen different media stories about it. Depending on which media branch you're listening to, you see things. There are some things that have happened here. The race card's been pulled, and so we just want to talk about what do we do? What you just heard is how it relates to the gospel, centering it back on Christ, the common thing we can find with him. We'll talk about it more. This is Rebels Cause Radio, that show every week that encourages you to read your Bibles, go to church, love Jesus, and forsake the world. This is Rebels Cause Radio. We'll be right back after this short break.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershide.
I'm administrative manager.
I am the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
If we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, it's your home.
It's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're gonna do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's gonna be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're gonna do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
If you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you gonna say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're gonna be listening. They're gonna wanna know what your challenges are. Then they're gonna come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? You can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me. But is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though. I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm gonna take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
Enough said.
you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
Don't just sit there. Get involved. This is a Rebels Cause Radio.
This is a Rebels Cause Radio. I am your host. They call me Dan Fry. Joining me in the room today, we have Jonathan Wedgeworth. Say hi.
Hi.
Kelly Lindbergh.
Hey.
Ryan Northfield is our producer, and we are talking with Quay Hanna. Quay Hanna, of course, is a internationally known, and I'm not trying to puff him up, but he's spoken internationally about the topic of race. Of course, we all know in the news this last Saturday, Zimmerman was found not guilty of premeditated murder and manslaughter. He was tried by a all-female jury selection and a female judge. And I think, though, there was only one minority on the entire panel.
I believe that's right.
That's what I read. Again, you can only trust, like, media is so bad. I mean, we were talking about this a little bit before the show, but you never really know what to believe anymore. It used to, for me, I guess, it used to seem like you could turn on the news and you would pretty much get the truth. You used to be able to trust it. CBS said this, so I'm pretty sure we're good. Now, like Sandy Hook, nobody knows what really happened. There's 20 million stories still floating around.
Well, not only do you not know what happened, but you also, depending on where you go to get your news, you could see two different headlines covered. I had a friend that posted something the other day that says, depending on where you go, the headline either says white man shoots black unarmed teenager, or another channel might say man defends himself against thugs attack. It just it's so skewed depending on where you go that sometimes you do have to wonder what.
There's no such thing as an unbiased news outlet anymore, it seems, and you have a very few conservative ones and a whole bunch of liberal ones. Fox let's be honest, Fox has a conservative bias. You're not going to get the straight scoop from Fox, but you're definitely not going to get the straight scoop from MSNBC or CNN. CNN is probably about as good as it gets, and they're still pretty left. The thing is
I never know which way is right or left. That's always frustrating me when they're like, we're right. I'm like, am I right or am I left? I'm not even sure.
You're in very broad brush, you're right.
Yeah. See, I never remember. So anyway, we've kind of established that there's really not a good place to get solid news. So
your best bet's to kind of get a multiplicity.
Yeah.
If you can listen to Fox and MSNBC, you're going to get both extreme right and extreme left.
And then you just pick the middle.
Do some fact checking too.
And that's becoming big. Now, we did have a question on chat, kind of getting us back on topic, and I thought it was a really great question. So I wanted to ask it. So this comes from our blogger, our resident blogger, Luke Snowden, who I don't believe released a blog this week. We must have been on vacation or something. So there was no blog this week, was there?
I think some SpongeBob got in the way and bacon.
He's slacking already. It's like 3 weeks in. 3 weeks in, Luke.
Yeah, it took us longer than that to start slacking.
Yeah, geez. Yeah, at least a month. So anyway, here's his question. Luke and I, someday we're gonna have him on. He's a former pastor from Las Vegas. Had a church out there. Came here. Had a church here for a little bit, and now works a straight job. So I kid. But he's very insightful. He's been very helpful to me. His blogs have been excellent. If you haven't been checking out the blogs, go to rebelscause.com. Look at the Rebels blog. Most of the posts as of late have been Luke. He kind of's got it. He's a mix of our styles, I feel like. He gets into kind of the flashy things that I tend to get into. His titles are always interesting. He's got some weird topic he starts with, but he's very detail oriented, kind of like you. So he's a pretty good read, very interesting.
He's insightful, and in my mind, he's a bit of a wordsmith. I love his turns of phrases and stuff.
Yeah, he's very, very, very good at it. So he asks this question: being that the reason both a multiplicity of languages and ethnicities exist, and by God's design to divide us at Babel, how should this inform our perspective in the light of the gospel? John?
I was going to defer to Quay, actually.
Well, Quay, you want to start?
You answer, John.
It's a deep, multifaceted question.
See, I thought it was a question for him. Okay, so
it's just a question for the topic.
Now I have to prepare. Well, we know that the gospel needs to go out to all people in all tongues. I guess I don't see exactly how Babel would tie into that.
Well, I think he's just talking about how we were sent out. Language was confused. I think he's tying in wrong or right, kind of the separation of nations and cultures there.
So he's making a parallel, right or wrong, between cultures and nations.
Sure.
Okay. So in other words, the language barrier.
Yeah.
How are we talking past each other?
Talking past each other, not understanding what each other's saying. Different cultures inevitably stemmed from those different language. It's kind of like we kind of.
You and I talk past each other. We have the most heated agreements because we're on the same page and we don't think we are, so we're fighting.
Sure, but there's also a different cultural aspect to each of us too. We were raised the way we were raised, and that informs our decisions. How does the gospel affect this based off God's design?
Well, I know we need to take the gospel to all peoples, and we need to be able to do it in a way that they will understand without compromising the content. Like, we can't change what the gospel is or what it's about, but if I come to you and start talking about the Hue C628 or 6280A central processor in the TurboGrafx 16, you're going to have no idea what I'm talking about. So I need to.
I like the B.
The B?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
My guess is it has something to do with video games.
Yeah, it does. It does. You're not going to understand what I'm talking about. So I need to find a way to explain it that you'd understand it. It's the CPU. Okay,
Sure.
You understand that.
Sure.
Yeah. So I guess I don't, unless he's just bringing up the question of contextualization, which I do think there's a place and necessity for. That's all the further I'd be able to go with that question.
All right, you want me to repeat it for Quay? Quay, I'm going to repeat it for you, just so we know here. Being the reason both the multiplicity of languages and ethnicities exist, and by God's design to divide us at Babel, how should this inform our perspective in light of the gospel?
Well, I'm not assuming that he's defending racism based on the fact that God's not looking for unity and thus spread people by ethnicity and language.
Yeah, I would assume that about him.
I'm assuming he's not because that's actually one of the ways people do defend racism biblically. There's different camps on that, but one of them is that we were not. Some people say we were not designed to be together. That we were designed to be in our populations and with our peoples, and so as America has brought us all together, we're going against what God has called us to, and that's why it's not working. That's you'll hear that from time to time, but I think that what we want to look at that is like John said, if we look at the point of creation is to glorify Christ, and in with the Tower of Babel, that if these people are coming together, they're becoming one and thinking that this is not what God's called them to. He's called them to spread across the earth, to populate the earth, and that's for the glory of Christ, so that that Christ will be proclaimed in all languages, will be proclaimed in these different people groups, and so I would say that God did it for good, and we have made it into something else in terms of whether you want to call it ethnocentrism or prejudice, to say, well, this is my group, my people group, and it's taking the place of the centrality of Christ, which is why I think God would have wanted us to spread across the globe.
All right, this is Rebels Cause Radio. When we get back, we'll continue on with the conversation for the last segment of the radio hour, and we'll probably continue it on to the final half hour of the show. Rebels Cause Radio. Read your Bibles, go to church, love Jesus, forsake the world.
You're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, Everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
Drink, dance, party. Kitty's is the ultimate dance club in Des Moines. A huge dance floor with room to move, 3 bars to keep your drinks full, and kickin' DJs playing all your favorite dance music. At Kitty's, we've always got your birthday party planned with Birthday Fridays. That's right, when your birthday rolls around, there's only one place to go. Gather up your friends and head to Kitty's, where you drink free on the Friday of your birthday week. Find out more about Birthday Fridays at kittysusa.com. Kitty's, all kinds of people, all kinds of music, all kinds of fun.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
Get away from my Sumito credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Help! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit! You're our hero!
Here I come to save the day. That means that Mighty Mouse is on the way.
Don't just sit there, get involved. This is a Rebels Cause Radio.
This is Rebels Cause Radio. I'm your host. Joining me today in studio, of course, is John Wedgeworth, Kelly Lindberg.
Hey.
And we got Quay Hanna joining us via Skype. Quay is an internationally known speaker on race. We called him in to kind of talk to us a little bit about the divide that we've had in this nation over this Zimmerman Martin case. And, you know, we got people that wanted to take to the streets marching against the what they perceive as injustice. Whether it is or not isn't what we came to comment on, so please don't read into that more than that. And you have people on the other side of the debate that want everybody to stop talking about it now, is simply all the questions have been answered, and how dare we continue on, and why are we dragging this out? And they put stuff on Facebook with why don't we talk about this story? Nobody wants to talk about this story, and they'll it's a reversed situation kind of thing, and why isn't this national news?
Well, I think that we see a lot of people that are now like, well, I've seen the posts that are, what about the so many thousand, this on this crimes or this and this that aren't getting, and it's just, to me, when that happens, what we're doing is we're just kind of we're tap dancing around the issue. We're not looking at the fact of, regardless of where you sit on this issue, one man's life was taken at the hands of another. Anytime that happens, that is tragic. Whether it's black on black, black on white, white on white, irrelevant. It's tragic when another man takes another man's life. And how do we work to restore that?
And I suppose all sides of the issue, the this was an injustice, we need to riot LA, all the way over to the shut up, it's over, he's innocent. All of those sides, all those positions, they all have one thing in common. They minimize the tragedy of the death of Trayvon Martin because they make it secondary to whatever their thing is. So now, I had a question for you, taking the conversation back to our first segment. You had said that you'd made an offhand comment about having Facebook friends that were very liberal and very conservative, and they all having their own view. Are you noticing more of a divide on this issue on race grounds or more on political affiliation grounds?
That's a great question. One I was hoping you would ask. Actually, it ties into what you were talking about in terms of the media. Because Dan, I think one of the things that you were saying that that I really have noticed a difference is that it doesn't seem anymore that the media gives you information. They basically tell you what you should think about this. And
I would agree.
And I think that's the problem, is that they're not presenting the information saying, here's everything. Now you take it and come to your conclusion based on the information we've given you. Instead, they seem to make it their objective to tell you what you should think about this if you're a good liberal, or here's what you should think about this if you're a good conservative. And what's happened now, and this is what I think we're seeing, John, is this divide is getting greater and greater and greater. And it's got this racial component, but I would say that white liberals would jump right on board and say, well, yeah, I'm taking this side because this is what I'm told is an injustice, as opposed to taking the information and saying, all right, well, I'm going to make a reasoned decision here. And that's what worries me, is that, again, and I would be on the right, and I don't listen to right-wing speakers or radio shows or TV shows because I don't like people telling me what to think. I just want some information. And one of the outlets that I used to think was a bit more moderate was NPR. They're definitely left-leaning, and their interview shows are way left. But at least the news used to be mildly moderate, I thought. But now it's unlistenable anymore. And I think it goes back to it's Kelly, right?
Correct.
Yeah, Kelly had said earlier about, just to give you an example, is that, anytime they're talking about abortion, if you are pro-life, you are anti-abortion.
Yes.
So they're always referring to anti-abortionists or people opposed to choice are saying this. Right away there, I'm like, okay, well, these guys are...
It's stacking the deck.
Yeah, and those words have a big impact because you're putting anti in front of it all the time. Now, personally, I am anti-abortion. That one I'm less concerned with because I proudly say I'm anti-abortion. Should somebody say I'm anti-choice, I would say, well, I am anti-choice. But in terms of someone killing their baby, yes, I don't believe that should be their choice. But people aren't usually going to weed that out. They're going to say, oh, you're opposed to America because you're anti-choice or you're anti-freedom.
They couch it in the position of women's health. If you make it a women's health thing, then all of a sudden you're a monster for opposing it.
Well, yeah, and here's another one that happens a lot is as a man you're not supposed to speak out against abortion, yet but a lot of white liberals speak out against racism. And I never have understood that is you flagrantly speak out against issues of which you are not a part of that population. So why with the issue of abortion does it suddenly become taboo for the man to not speak out? Especially since a man plays a role in impregnating a woman. And the bottom line is this is the culture, this is the people, this is our community. And speaking out against murder, I think is well within the male's role to play in speaking out.
Well, not to mention that the victims here are both male and female. So it's not as if we are disconnected by gender completely. Like the only one that ever is affected is the female. That's just not true. I mean, the babies, male and female, both get murdered with very, very often no prejudice, and sometimes with prejudice.
That's a whole show in of its own there, buddy.
It is. So we got to go to the web hour. If you listen to us live on 99.3 KTIA, we're going to finish up the conversation. We're going to talk a little bit about this gap and maybe how to shore up the gap. We're going to start talking that conversation. We all agree there's gaps. Now, how do we not only look from the other person's perspective, but make the perspectives closer together? This is Rebels Cause Radio. That's what we do. Come to you every week. We beg you to read your Bibles, to actually read them, to read commentaries, to know about them, to know what they say, to go to church, not just any church, but a good Bible-believing church, one that teaches the entire counsel of the Word of God and is unafraid to do so, preferably in an expository fashion. And then, of course, love Jesus. Whole Bible centered around Christ. He is worthy of your love. And forsake the world. There is just nothing in this world left for us. Rebels Cause Radio next week. Joining us will be a very special guest, Zaid the Blacksmith. He is coming fresh off a European tour with Christ Centric. It is another little rap group. Basically, it's Timothy Brindle.
Timothy Brindle and Stephen Levite. That's not Christ Centric. That's Christ Centric's Evangels.
Sorry, what are they called? They're the Collective. The Collective. Sorry, the Collective. So Zaid the Blacksmith next week. Rebels Cause Radio is brought to you by Wrath and Grace Clothing. Check out their website at wrathandgrace.com. Till next week.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Drink, dance, party. Kitty's is the ultimate dance club in Des Moines. A huge dance floor with room to move, 3 bars to keep your drinks full, and kickin' DJs playing all your favorite dance music. At Kitty's, we've always got your birthday party planned with Birthday Fridays. That's right, when your birthday rolls around, there's only one place to go. Gather up your friends and head to Kitty's, where you drink free on the Friday of your birthday week. Find out more about Birthday Fridays at kittysusa.com. Kitty's, all kinds of people, all kinds of music, all kinds of fun.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
Yes, now your favorite programs on Webcast One Live can all be watched and listened to on any Android or Apple device. Your phone, tablet, or iPad. Yes, your favorite shows on Webcast One Live are available live or on podcast wherever you go. Let me introduce to you some of our great shows.
I'm Michael Libby. I'm the host of Insight on Business, the News Hour. We're seen live at 8:45 each Monday morning at Webcast One Live or whenever you want on my blog or on the internet. So what qualifies me to talk about advertising, marketing, and consumer trends? Well, it's my business. Insight Advertising, Marketing, and Communications has helped dozens of companies, small, medium, and large, learn how to use advertising correctly. And we pass that information on to you each and every week.
Hi, I'm Doc. You listen to me every Tuesday from 6 to 7 p.m. on Doc and Lefty Radio podcast program, where we discuss all the relevant topics of the day, including state, local, and national politics. My partner in crime, Lefty, often likes to have a little bit of conservative justice served upon him, so please turn in for the fireworks every week from 6 to 7 p.m. on Tuesdays at webcastonelive.com. Thank you.
So when you want to watch your favorite Webcast One program, remember, there's an app for that. You know, there's an app for that.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
us our Uzis right at all those non-tithing members because we want God to come to church. And at the count of 3 Jesuses, we shoot them all dead.
Say what?
Welcome, welcome, welcome to the world, dog.
Say what again? Say what again?
I believe that Jesus is the way to the one God, but I believe there are many paths to Jesus.
That don't make no sense.
That doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make any sense, sir.
Evidently, Mr. Ringo's an educated man. Now I really hate him.
You know what happens when you compromise and men finally get an opportunity to preach the gospel? Having compromised and sinned against God, you know what? If you preach the gospel, even if you compromise and get an opportunity to eventually preach the gospel, some are going to mock you, some will hear you further, and some will believe. You know what happens when you don't compromise and God opens an opportunity for you to preach the gospel? Some will mock you, some will listen to you further, and some will believe. So why bother compromising in the first place?
Welcome back to the second hour of A Rebel's Cause Radio with your host, that tattooed freak of a man, Dan Fry.
That is right. This is the last web-only half hour of A Rebel's Cause Radio. We are winding down or just getting started the conversation about race. It's an awkward subject. If you thought last hour was awkward, it was. Surprise. It's hard for us to talk about. We're trying to not upset anybody because our perspectives are too narrow. We're trying not to overly wade into controversial waters for the sake of controversy, but actually tie it into what it is. Luke did a really good job in the question he was actually getting at. God intentionally separated people at Babel, and it's a curse. It's a result of the fall, and that Jesus Christ is the remedy for that curse. And he was getting to that, and he was tying in with the Revelation where we see all languages, all skin colors, worshiping at the throne in unison Christ. That's what he was getting at with this question. Maybe he used too many words to get there. I don't know. But that's how people ask, how does this relate to the gospel? Well, the gospel's the cure. Racism, not going to exist in heaven. We're not going to be afraid of heaven when we see a group of people that don't look like us walking down the street. And that goes both directions. I am sure for a black person, when you see a large group of hillbillies like Quay over there with his John Deere hat and straw in his ears, walking down the street at you, I bet they worry too. I remember I worked with a guy at Mako. I used to do body work at Mako, and somebody pretended to have this lady pretended to have somebody had poured paint thinner in her cup. Everybody hated her and tried to blame it on us. She actually did it herself. She tried to sue Mako because she needed money for a big construction job her husband was getting. I remember the black kid looking at me and going, "Man, I'm black and I'm in Iowa. I didn't do it. I'd get hung for sure." And it's kind of, it was funny at the moment. The moment I kind of laughed, but the reality is he's right. There's a good chance it would get pinned on him because he was the black guy in the room. That's not unreasonable to think that a bunch of hillbillies that work at Mako would kind of think, well, maybe he did it, or let's pin it on him.
Well, and I think another thing with that too is whether it's unreasonable or unfair, it's still the world that we live in, and it's that way in. And
even if that wouldn't have happened to him,
absolutely,
maybe that wouldn't have happened. But that's his perception of what would have happened in Iowa, and I don't think that's, I don't think that's far out of line.
There was a study, and I don't know how much weight this study carries, but the proportion of black people in jail versus the proportion of black people in society, obviously the higher percentage, the worse the state is by the standard. And Iowa actually came in dead last in that.
Dead last, meaning they had
the highest percentage per capita.
Yeah, that's a big news story right now, is that our laws it tend to attract black convictions and stuff like that. There's a lot of convicted black people that end up in prison versus other races. And some of that's how we structure laws. You got to think 100 years ago, 200 years ago, as slavery is coming to its end and whatnot, there were a lot of laws from racist people that were kind of set up to help the white guy. Because they were who were in power. Those may or may not have continued to carry on, and there may be some viability to some of the complaints. I know we were listening to J. Michael McCoy's show, A View from the Pew. I was doing the producing for it, and we had a guy on. He was actually a Muslim guy, but he was on. And he said, the convictions for crack cocaine carry a higher minimum penalty than any other drug. Now, I actually was told meth carried the highest minimum penalty, but researching it, I think it's about the same. And it is like almost 75%, 76% of the minimum penalty being applied to crack cocaine goes to black people. So,
and then the problem that you get into there is, okay, so the penalty lies. Are we saying then that the penalty is stricter with the black community?
Well,
or is it just more convictions? Higher conviction rate?
Higher conviction rate, and it's a drug that's more commonly found in a black community, and so there's a higher minimum. Like it seems if you do cocaine, which is a white people's drug, even though it's the base of crack,
right,
it is actually better to get caught with coke than crack,
right.
And crack is just diluted. All crack rock is baby powder, coke, boiled. That is it. For those of you that now know how to make crack, please don't do it. But that's what it is. So it seems odd to even me that the base of another drug would carry a less minimum penalty, because first of all, that drug is still illegal. It is still getting used. It's still dangerous. It's still harmful.
But which one's the more harmful drug?
They're both equally addictive. One does more
anytime
damage.
you take a drug and you cut it and you mix it,
yeah, they put
you're
stuff in
playing
it.
with fire.
Yeah,
so it's the
especially
heavier
when
drug.
you
so
when
crack is the heavier drug than coke.
Well, it's not heavier.
It's heavier. It's just
it may be more dangerous to your health.
Okay, well then I would be inclined to sooner ascribe the reason for the higher penalty to its greater danger and the extra steps you have to do to make it,
John,
rather than a racial motivation.
That's true.
Most
That's true.
laws,
But the other
though,
thing we have to remember too is we. I'm not saying there's not a crack cocaine problem in Central Iowa, but
no, there is.
Relative.
And Bob is saying that it's more addictive and more harmful, and I think he's right. He may be more.
So I would not assume primary motivation being racially motivated, more on what the drug is.
But that's us. Again, we're looking at
that's through the goggles of Central Iowa.
That's through the goggles of a white upper lower early middle class white guy from Iowa to a black guy who looks at crack as a black drug, perhaps, or knows its billed as a black drug. It looks at an attack on the African American. Quay, when you're dealing with this kind of situation, do you see? Are you able now to kind of see both perspectives, or do you still feel like because you're kind of limited by your eyes that you'll never really get the full picture?
Yeah, the specific issue you guys are talking about with cocaine and crack, the idea is that it's not they said, well, let's make stronger laws because a lot more black people smoke crack. Even if it was for, let's say, because it's more addictive and dangerous and so on, it's that it's so much cheaper. And so it's much more prevalent in black communities where there's a much higher level of poverty and lower socioeconomic status. Whereas cocaine tends to be, it's a very expensive drug, so it's used by wealthier people, which tend to be white. So it's one of those laws that certainly they're not saying, well, we want to get more black people in prison, so we're going to put this mandatory sentence on crack. And that's why it's usually, I think it would be referred to more as like a de facto racist law, in that it wasn't designed to do that, but that's what it's doing. And then the argument, of course, is that, again, like what you were saying, Dan, it's cocaine and this is crack, and they're both cocaine. So why does this one get this higher mandatory sentence and so on?
Well, What's wrong, Quay? Just let's stay in this conversation. What's wrong with just giving minimum drug sentences for different classes of drugs and doing classes? If it has the same base, it has to be in that class or as the drug that has the base.
Well,
I mean, something like that. I mean, isn't there a way to even out these because
I think we have that to an extent. I mean, drugs, anytime you're charged with a drug violation, I mean, I can't speak for other states, but in Iowa, it falls into a classification. And
sure.
So if it's class 2, class 3.
Yeah, I know we have that, but I just wonder how we couldn't even this out. Because it is a problem. It's something that's viewed differently. I mean, as white guys, to me, even as I kind of look at it on the surface level, I don't really see it as a race thing. But yet it's being paraded around the Des Moines Register as we're racist with our laws, and so how do we address that? That's really it's a no-win situation. So before we went to break, we were talking about we're going to try to kind of answer the question. So Quay, John gave us kind of the working analogy tonight about the 90 gallons versus the 10 gallons. How we've established, and as Kelly pointed out earlier off air, we've kind of established we all believe there's a gap, a rather large gap. We'll all agree to the 80 gallon gap kind of theory that John kind of worked out for us. How do we shorten that gap? I mean, what's the answer to not only to see it from the other person's perspective, but help make that gap smaller so that it happens less? Because it seems to me that if we only are just trying to see the other person's perspective, we don't actually ever make any progress. We just stop regress.
Yeah, I most of the time I talk about education and interaction as being two key components to addressing racism and to help us get along better in general as humans, even beyond race. But education would be, studying history and understanding how, race has been such a central component to American history that it's part of the reason that we, anytime someone's saying, well, the Civil War ended 150 years ago and the Civil Rights Act was the 1950s, so why are we still talking about this? Well, we have a history that it was built on classifying people based on their skin color. So education is an important one, and I do. Thabiti Anyabwile is one of my favorite guys to read. I'd really encourage people to check him out, especially when issues concerning race come up, because he's such a great voice. He's so humble. He really tries to see it. He's a black man, but he really tries to help see it from his perspective and share that, but then also to try to see it from other people's perspective and ultimately linking it to the gospel. And, going to guys like him and understanding that, I think is a huge part of it. Then secondly, interaction. A lot of times you can study all you want about Black history and American history and understand sociology and so on. But if you don't ever interact with people, I think that it's just simply head knowledge. Yeah. So getting out and interacting with people who are different and going on, like I said, going to places where you're the minority. And, that's why I like to develop forums where people can talk with those who are different, that are, it's a safe area that you can bring up politically incorrect topics and discuss them. So last year when the Trayvon Martin incident happened, my club at one of my schools, they call it Quay's Club, we had a discussion about it. I have a mixed race group of students, and the value in that is that white student who sees it just like, look, this is self-defense. A guy's got to defend himself. He has every right to do that. Then my black student can say, well, here, let me help you see that as a black person. This is what worries me, is that if someone can wantonly kill someone because they feel threatened, how do I know that someone who's racist isn't threatened by me just because of my skin color? Things like that, those discussions. And I've seen amazing things happen. One example was back when Arizona, I don't know if you remember, they were putting into place what were going to be some of the strictest immigration laws, illegal immigration laws. And they were, I know I'm shortening it, but you were going to be able to stop someone with reasonable cause and ask for their papers, to see if they're legal or not.
Which is offensive.
And what happened was in my group of students, a lot of my rural white country boys were like, well, yeah, if you're legal, then you shouldn't worry about that. There shouldn't be a problem, and if you're not legal, then get out of my country, etc. And one of my Hispanic females and she's a half Mexican, half Puerto Rican. She started crying, and my students were like, what's wrong? And she started talking about the fear that was in her that if I could be walking down the street and somebody just assumes that I'm illegal and, I'm an American citizen and I'm being stopped. And she was crying, and it was amazing. But these guys, after it was over, said they were sorry. And several of them just gave her a hug. And, it was one of those amazing moments that, again, you may still support Arizona's law, but you also have put a face to your position, which, those relationships really start to affect and change, I think, the way you see things.
Well, and, you kind of heard me butt in and say, I think it's unfair and discriminatory. My wife is Puerto Rican. And when she first moved to Iowa, she was called names because she came from Florida, where she spent a lot of time out in the sun and was even darker of complexion than she is now. She's not a very, I don't know. I don't think most people would assume she's Hispanic in general, but back then it was a lot more obvious. She had the last name Soliveris, so it was, her name kind of gave it away, and she was called names. Coming to a rural Iowa school, she went to Southeast Polk, and she was called names and stuff like that. And so when these laws came up, I mean, immediately for her, she thought of herself and her family and the hassle. Well, and people don't understand about Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is part of America. So these Hispanics that we are making judgments about, these people were born with the same rights and the same entitlements as citizens as we had. And we're being let off, and they're not. Because their skin looks different. It is wrong and it is unfair, I think. I understand why Arizona in particular would do that. I realize it's a border town. I realize this is a huge problem. I want them to find a better way. Maybe there isn't a better way. I'm not saying there is or isn't. I'm not making blanket statements, but it is something that for my wife was a reality, and I had never thought of it. I'd been the guy that'd been like, yeah, that'd be great. Make them show ID, and if not, just put them on a bus, That'd be me. But the reality was I thought about my poor wife walking down the street, getting groceries with my kids, getting stopped, and, having to explain who she is and get ID. And my wife never has ID with her, ever. I mean, she went to the airport, tried to fly without ID. I mean, she's horrible at ID.
She needs improvement. We don't ever say our wives are horrible.
She is horrible at carrying her ID. Right, I've been married 11 years. I got it. I'll live with
you, brother.
We'll live with the consequences.
We'll be celebrating. My wife and I will be celebrating our 14-year anniversary here real soon, and
she's horrible at remembering it.
We have it's you afford
horrible.
that kind of candidness when you've been married that long.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, she's just that would be a problem for Dawn. She's on the chat. It would be a problem for Dawn. I mean, in fact, I remember when we first got married, went on vacation. It's the first time I ever flew. We went. It was after 9/11, So I pull in the airport. I'm driving. I don't even remember what I was driving. I was driving some race car. That's all I had back then. So it was probably my GSX or something like that. Tinted windows, stereo system, loud, obnoxious. They waved me through. My wife pulls through in her Ford Probe because we had both vehicles there because we had my mother-in-law and some stuff in tow. And they pulled her out and searched her. Went through her car.
Well, and it does, unfortunately, like you said, those scenarios do exist. I think Quay hit on a great point when, and hopefully I don't misquote you, but when you said interaction and education. Well, I know for me, I grew up on a farm in Southwest Iowa as well. So there was one race of people, and they were white farmers, and that was it. And then when we were rednecks, you know. And then when I got older and ventured out into the world, and I tell you what, leaving this country and going to other countries where you are definitely the minority, I can tell you, I'm not a guy that has a lot of fear, but walking into a market in another country where there are no other white people, it makes you look at things in a whole different perspective. And unless you've felt that, like every eye is on you or your every move is being judged and scrutinized, I think it's very, very tough to say, you know, I get that. We can sit here and say that all we want. Oh yeah, I understand that. But until you've been in that scenario, I don't think that you can get it. So I like what you said about the education and the interaction. I think that's, you know, we got to get together.
I think the interaction's huge.
The interaction is very huge. I know that I think the worst thing that we could have is a xenophobia, where we stick to our kind, because that doesn't yield anything good. I mean,
well, look at our grandparents. Okay, my grandma, she must have been going crazy, or she just absolutely hated me and didn't care. But we're sitting in my dad's kitchen, and she goes, I think white people should only marry white people. I don't like seeing white people marrying Mexicans. I don't like white people marrying black people. They should just stick to their own kind. This is what my grandma said. My wife was in the room. I go, Grandma, you know my wife's Hispanic, right? And she goes, well, I didn't mean her. Well, yeah, you did.
You did.
You did.
I think unfortunately that points to culture at that time.
Well, I think it's getting better, but like the other day,
we have a long ways to go.
The other day, I heard a prominent politician. I won't mention his name because I don't want to put but he said, I don't see race. I think it's a generational thing. I think it's over. My kids don't see race. None of us see race. This week, entire nation saw race. But how do we say, you like to grab onto that and be like, yeah, our laws, they're a lot more fair now. We've got the affirmative action. We've really gone leaps and bounds. We've got a black president. This is awesome, right? This should be getting better. But man,
I think part of
this case brought it right back to
some people see race in everything, and some people see race in nothing.
Kelly, we've interrupted you 5 times.
That's all right. That's okay. I'm the new guy, so remember, you're the one that told me to start talking. So I think part of what we see too in play is with the nation and the media, being up in uproar about all this racial tension. That gains viewership. People tune in to see that. We are a nation that thrives on controversy, whether we like it or not. When Quay talked about interaction, when was the last time you turned on the news and you saw a group of people from one race going out and serving people of another race, whether it be
9/11?
Right. Okay. So that was the last time we were really, really unified. My point is that kind of stuff happens. It still happens. There's people that volunteer through community organizations. There's people that do things that try to get in the middle and make a difference. And nobody, I don't want to say nobody wants to see that, but
it doesn't make good news.
That doesn't make good news. And so
good news doesn't make good news.
Exactly. It warms the heart when you see it, but it doesn't attract viewers. Those YouTube videos don't go viral when you see that. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I didn't want to interrupt you. I just wanted to say, because I'm in complete agreement there. And that goes back to, this whole idea that the media is telling us what to believe about these things.
Amen.
And we don't get a chance to even to discuss it and debate it. And then it spills over into our communities where, I went to the gym the day after the verdict for Zimmerman being innocent. And there's guys that I don't know, but black guys in there. And I'm like, are they looking at me differently? Am I looking at them differently? You think about how this spills out. We weren't at all directly involved in the actual incident. But one of the positive things that happened this same week, which has been really interesting here in Lancaster, is that there was a child abduction last Saturday. A 5-year-old girl was taken off the street. A guy invited her into his car to get ice cream, and he took her. and they found out she was missing. So they put an all call out. They called it Amber Alert.
Yep, we have them
people
here.
were searching for her, and there was 2 teenage black males who spotted her in a car.
And
they were on their bikes, and they started following this guy in the car. And for 15 minutes they trailed him, or tailed him, and finally and this kid was telling the story. He's like, I was getting ready to jump on the car, and he apparently they were far enough back that he stopped and he kicked this little five-year-old girl out, and this kid stopped, this 15-year-old teenage black male, and this little girl came running to him and said, "You need to take me to my mommy." And he's a hero in this town, and it is so refreshing in light of everything that's happened in the last week in terms of this case and the racial tension, to see this young man getting proper attention as a hero for our community. I thank God that he had the guts to keep tailing that guy, and that little girl is back home now.
That was in your community that happened?
Yeah, that was right.
I saw that on the news the other day. It was really neat deal.
I'm just
literally blocks from my house.
Cool. That's scary. Don't you have little girls?
That is scary. I have 4 kids.
Just call Lebanon Levi. He'll take care of it.
Yeah, I do need the Amish Mafia out here. Crap us down south.
But that's a prime example. I mean, I saw a link to that. Somebody I know posted it on Facebook or whatever, the news story about that. But those are the kind of things that, we talked earlier in the show. How do we bridge that gap? I think that's one way that we start bridging that gap is we start with ourselves. We reach out to other people. We show love. We cross that barrier, break down that barrier, and then we get the word out. We
celebrate it.
We celebrate it. You know.
Yeah.
You were say that was exactly, and then Angry Kelly cut you off.
Grr. Sorry.
Who, me?
Yeah, you were saying something, and then Kelly kept talking.
He was fine. No, that I'm on board. I just think that, okay, so for example, when we see we underestimate the power of the visual, I think, sometimes. So just like you were talking about with the Trayvon Martin, the faux picture of him giving the finger, and the picture of him with his gold teeth, and these, and then of course, on the other side they're showing a picture of him when he's 12 years old. The sweet, innocent little kid. And of course the truth is somewhere in between there. And like you said, the things that sell are always these dramatic, violent, horrendous things where, let's say we started seeing pictures of local heroes who, like this young man who saves this little 5-year-old girl. Well, his picture's not plastered all over America. It's not on the front page of every paper, which maybe if it was would begin this process of that guy who may have a tendency to prejudge a teenage black male as, they're all thugs, they're all criminals. And then he sees this kid on the front page, and I'm not saying it's going to be instantaneous, but it might begin that process of, oh, well, maybe not. And, to be honest, that's exactly what happened to me when I started traveling around the country in 1993. I'm riding on the bus, and, I thought I hated all these people. And here I am sitting next to these people on the bus, and we're having conversations. And one of the things I talk about in my presentation is that I was the minority on the bus. And these older black and Hispanic folks, I stood out. I was the only one with a Copenhagen hat on the bus. The only one with a flannel shirt. I stood out, and instead of alienating me or putting me off to the side or maybe even encouraging people to go after me, they protected me because I didn't know what was going on. I'm naive. It began a change that made me say, well, I want to encourage other people in my community to start thinking about these issues.
All right.
That's good stuff.
Good stuff. All right, that was Quay Hanna. Quay Hanna is, of course, the author of Bus America, Revelation of a Redneck. I do recommend that book to you. You can find it on Amazon. I might have a signed copy here. We'll give away sometime. I don't know. I don't like parting with those ones. Thank you so much for coming on, Quay.
Thank you, Dan. It was great.
All right. John, thanks for coming on tonight.
Oh, thanks, Dan. It was great.
John, I want you to talk more. I like hearing what you have to say.
Well, if he wasn't talking so much, I would.
All right, Kelly, thank you for coming in. Ryan, thank
Thanks for
you. You
being
did
here.
an excellent job producing the
Thanks,
show.
Clay. Got a lot out of what you said.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
This is a Rebels Cause Radio. Next week, we will be talking with Zayd Blacksmith. He is part of the collective featuring Timothy Brindle and Stephen Levite. I'm pretty excited about that. This is brought to you by Wrath and Grace Clothing. You can find out more about Wrath and Grace Clothing at wrathandgrace.com. Their slogan, of course, is proclaiming the wrath and grace of a sovereign God, one t-shirt at a time. A Rebels Cause Radio always encourages you to read your Bibles, to know what they say, to read commentaries about them, to have conversations about what you read, to go to a good church, a Bible-believing church, one that is not afraid to teach the entire counsel of the Word of God, to love Jesus. Jesus Christ is the center of the gospel, and He is worthy of your love. And of course, forsake the world. Until next time, this is a Rebels Cause Radio.
Bring it in your